Hello everyone, this is Stephen Baltz, your instructor for computer applications at Ozarka College. Today what I'm going to do is take you through the steps in Access Module 1 in your textbook, which starts on page AC1. It's the orange color-coded section in your textbook. So if you'll notice on page AC1, it just kind of talks about what a database is and what a database management system is. Access is a database management system. It's basically a program that allows us to create a database, add and change and delete data in the database, ask questions or query the database, create forms and reports that a business might use in meetings and to make important decisions. And it also talks about what a database is. A database is just a collection of data that's organized in a way that we can easily retrieve it and use that data. And if you think about it, there's all kinds of data that a business would need to keep track of, such as inventory, employee data, customer data, sales data, payroll. Some of the same things that we would keep track of in Excel, we can also keep track of in Access. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a database for a company that provides HR solutions. The company name is PrattLast Associates. So if you'll notice on page 2, it shows us the two tables that we're going to create as part of this database. It also talks about a relational database. In this case, the database that we're creating is going to be a relational database in the sense that there's going to be a relationship between the two tables. Specifically, one of the fields is going to be the same for both tables. So you'll notice there's an account table in figure 1-1A on page 2, and then right below it you have the account manager table. Those are the two tables we're going to create. We're actually going to create the account manager table first, then we're going to create the account table. So the like field between the two tables is the account manager number field, and you can kind of see that it points to that field in those pictures there on page 2. That will become important a little bit later on when we work through and create the structure for these tables. Alright, on page 3, it talks about, actually the bottom of page 2 and continues on to page 3, it talks about the parts of a table. So a table is made up of rows and columns, and the rows in the table are called records, and the columns are called fields. A record in a table is all the information about a particular person, product, or event. Alright, so for example, in the account manager table, all the information about a particular account manager would be a record in the table. Okay, a field is a specific piece of information within a record. So for example, within the account manager table, the account manager number, last name, first name, street, city, state, and so forth, each piece of information that we're storing about each account manager in the account manager table would be considered a field. Alright, now in order to be able to retrieve only certain records from the table, we need to have one field that uniquely identifies each record in the table, and that's called the unique identifier, which you see there on page 3. So if you haven't already read through that, kind of read through that. The unique identifier is also called the primary key field. Alright, so in each one of our tables that we're going to create in this module, there's going to be one of the fields that's going to be identified as the primary key field. Alright, now on page 4, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go through the process to start Access and save the database with the name that were given for this particular database. Alright, so on page 4, under Create a Database, if you haven't already opened up Microsoft Access, go ahead and do that. So go ahead and run Access. I've already done that, as you can see. And when you click on the link to Access, the first thing you're going to see is you're going to see links to several different templates that you can use in Access. What we want to do is find the one that's called Blank Database and click on the Blank Database template link. Alright, when you click on Blank Database, it's going to show us the Blank Database dialog box where we're going to need to type in a file name. Right now, it says Database 1 is the file name. We're going to drag through that name, or you can just delete it, and then you're going to type in what's shown on step 2 on page 4. Alright, so we're going to type in PrattLast Associates as the name of the database. Alright, then we're going to need to click the Browse for a Location button to the right of the file name box, and that will open up the File New Database dialog box where we can then navigate to the folder where we want to save our work, okay, where we want to save this file. And so wherever you normally save the work for your class, that's where you're going to save this file. The main thing, it really doesn't matter where you save this, it just matters that you're able to access it when you need to upload it into Miles Arca as part of your assignment. Okay, so we're going to click OK once we choose where we're going to save it, and you'll notice there's a navigation to the address right below the file name box telling us where we're saving the file, and then you're just going to click the Create button, and that opens up the Microsoft Access window, and you notice it starts us off with one table. So you'll notice there's a table 1 already open for us. We're going to work with that in just a minute. You'll notice over here on the left hand side you have a navigation pane, and it shows the table 1 that it starts us off with. And on page 6, if you haven't already done so, you need to kind of read through information about the Access Work area, which is this area where we're going to enter our field names and our records a little bit later on. The navigation pane, which is over on the left hand side, which I kind of already talked about, where it says all access objects. This whole area over here on the left hand side is called the navigation pane, and it basically allows us to navigate to various objects that we have open in our database. Alright, and then you can hide and show the navigation pane by using the shutter bar open close button, and this is a toggle. So the first time you click it, it's going to hide the navigation pane, and then the next time you click it, it's going to show the navigation pane. And you need to kind of get used to using that that shutter bar open close button, because it's going to have us click on that several times as we work through the module. And then down at the bottom, it talks about the status bar. Down here it says data sheet view. That's the default view in Access, and then this whole series of columns and rows that make up the table, that's called the data sheet. Okay, and then on page 6 under determining tables and fields, it talks about some of the rules for naming your tables and fields in your database. It also talks about determining the primary key, so if you haven't already done so, read through that. Page 7, it talks about the major data types that are used for fields in a table. So just kind of read through that. Most of the fields we're going to create in our tables are going to use the short text data type, which can basically include any kind of characters, but we will use some of the other ones as well. Alright. And then on page 8, under creating a table, it talks about, again, data sheet view, which is the default view in Access, which is what we're looking at right now. It also talks about design view, which is the view that I'll show you in a few minutes to enter the fields for the table. And also on the bottom of page 8, it talks about a caption. A caption is just kind of a way that we can abbreviate certain field names that are a little bit longer to kind of save some horizontal space in our data sheet. And then on page 9, in table 1-3 there, it shows the structure for the account manager table. Alright, we're going to use that in just a few minutes to actually create the structure, what's called defining the fields for the account manager table. Alright, and then on page 10 is where we're going to go ahead and start creating the fields for our first table. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is right click on the ID heading, column heading up here, and when you do that you'll see a shortcut menu, and then towards the bottom of the shortcut menu you need to click on rename field, and it just opens up a edit box for us to edit the name of the field. And then on step 2 on page 10 it wants us to type in account manager number as the name of the field. Okay, then once you get that typed in, you're going to click the white space below account manager number, and then we're going to go up here to the Table Tools Fields tab up on the ribbon, and in the data type box here we're going to change that box, that selection, to short text. So you're just going to click the down arrow to the right of the box, and when you see the drop down menu you're going to click on short text, because that's going to be the data type for this field, which just means that we're going to be able to type any kind of characters in that field. Alright, then we're also going to need to change the field size for this field. So over here where you see the field size 255, we're going to drag through that or just delete it and type in 2 as the field size. Alright, then this particular field also has a caption. Alright, so we're going to need to click on the Name and Caption button in the Properties group on the Fields tab. Alright, and that'll open up the Enter Field Properties dialog box. And in the Caption box there, we're going to type in what's shown on the third bulleted item on step 5 on page 11. So we're going to type in AM space # as the caption. And again, the caption is just an abbreviation of the field name. It's going to basically allow us to save some space, a horizontal space in our table. Alright, then we're also going to click the description box down here and type in what's shown on page 11. So we're going to type in unique identifier of account manager as the description. Alright, then we're going to click the OK button. Alright, so we've got our first field defined. Okay, we've created the first field for our account manager table. Alright, so on the bottom of page 11, to create the second field in our table, it wants us to click on Click to Add. Alright, for that second column there, that's going to be our second field in our table, and we're going to choose short text as the data type, and we're going to go to page 12, and on step 2 it wants us to type in last name as the field name for this second field. Alright, then to finalize that name change, we're going to click the white space below last name, and then we're going to go up to the field size box up here and change that 255 field size to 15. Okay. Alright, so we've got our first two fields defined. Now what we need to do is go through the steps to create the remaining fields in our table. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this a little differently than the way the book shows to do it. In the book it shows on step 3 on page 12, that second bulleted item on step 3, it tells us to go back to table 1-3 and use the same technique that we just did for the first two fields to enter the remaining fields. What I'm going to do instead, we're going to still go back to page 9, the table 1-3 structure of the account manager table. So go ahead and turn to page 9. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through a little bit different steps in the way the book shows it, just because it's a little bit easier to actually enter the fields in design view than it is in datasheet view. So to save some time, I'm going to show you how to do it in design view. Alright, so to change to design view, all you're going to do is click the view button over on the left hand side of the table tools fields tab. So you're just going to click on the view button, and when you do that, it will open up a dialog box, a save as dialog box, where it wants us to save the table name. In this case, we're going to save this table as Accountmanager. Okay, and then we're just going to click the OK button. Alright, and you'll notice it switches views. So we're no longer in datasheet view, we're actually in design view, and you can see that by looking on the left side of the status bar down here. Alright, so we're now in design view, which is a much better view to use, in my opinion, to create the fields for our table. Alright, so that's why I'm kind of doing it a little bit different than the way the book shows it. Alright, so in order to enter the third field for our table, we're going to click on the third row under field name up here, and we're going to type in, you're going to again look on table 1-3 on page 9, and you'll notice the third field name is first name. So we're going to type in first name as that third field name, and then you can press tab to move to the data type column, or you can just click on the data type column for first name. And if you'll notice there on page 9, it says that we need to use short text as the data type for this field. Alright, it also says we need to change the field size for this field to 15. So we're going to do that down here on the field properties pane. So down here on the field size box where it says 255, we're going to change that 255 to 15. Alright, once you get that done, you're going to move back up to the fourth row under field name, and looking on again table 1-3 on page 9, you'll notice the next field that we need to enter is street. Alright, so we're going to type that in, press tab to move to the data type column for that field, and you'll notice there in the table 1-3 it says that we need to use short text as the data type for this field. So we've done that, and then we need to go down here to the field size box down here on the bottom on the field properties pane, and on this particular field it wants us to use 20 as the field size, so we're going to type that in. Alright, then to create the next field, we're going to go up to the next blank row up on the account manager table up here, and we're going to type in city as the next field name. We're going to press tab and make sure short text is selected as the data type for the city field. And then we're going to go down here to the field size box and change the field size for this field to 20. Alright, then we're going to go to the next available row, and right under city, and type in state and press tab. Make sure short text is selected as the data type for the state field, and then go down here to the field size box and type and change the field size to 2, because we're going to use a state abbreviation for the state field. Alright, then you're going to click on the next available row there and click or type in postal code as the next field name. Press tab, make sure short text is selected as the data type, and then we're going to change the field size down here for the postal code field to 5. Then we're going to go back up right underneath postal code and type in the next field, which is start date. And then press tab. Now on this one you have to be a little bit careful, because on this one it wants us to use a different data type. It wants us to use the date time data type. So you're going to click on the down arrow for the data type drop down list box to show up, and then you're going to click on date time as the data type for this field. Alright, we don't need to change the field size for that field, and then we're just going to click on the next available row there and click or type in salary as the next field name, and then press tab to move to the data type column. And on this one it wants us to use currency as the data type, so we're going to choose currency there as the data type. And on this one we don't need to change the field size. Okay, and then the last field is bonus rate, so we're going to type in bonus rate as the field name, and then we're going to press tab to move to the data type column. We're going to change this one to number. Alright, now on this one you'll notice on the table 1-3 on page 9 it gives us some other information that we need to specify for this field. So in addition to the data type, it wants us to change the field size here to single. So to do that, you're going to find the field size row under on the field properties pane down here at the bottom. Right now it says long integer is the field size. We're going to point and click on the very far right of that field size box, and it will open up a list of various field sizes that we can choose for this number data type field. And we're going to choose single, just like it says there in the table. We're going to choose single as the field size. Then you'll notice in the description column for the bonus rate field on page 9, it wants us to choose fixed as the format. So you'll notice format is the next box in the field properties task pane. So we're going to click on the far right of the format box, and it'll open up a drop down menu, and we need to choose fixed as the format. And then it also wants us to change the decimal places to 2, which is that next row here. So for the decimal places box, we're going to click on the far right of that box, and it'll open up a drop down menu, and we're going to choose 2 as the number of decimal places for the bonus rate field. Okay, so we've got all that selected. So we've got the structure of our table done. So now we're going to click the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar just to save all the changes that we've made to the structure of the Account Manager table. Alright, now since I did this a little bit differently than the way the book shows it, we have basically now completed all the steps up through page 16. Okay, so I just showed you a little bit different way of entering in the field names and creating the structure of all the fields. Alright, so next thing it wants us to do on the very bottom of page 16, it wants us to close the Account Manager table. So we're going to click the Close button for the Account Manager table, which is right over here. Alright, so we're going to click on the Close button there. Alright, and the next thing it wants us to do is to add the records to that Account Manager table that we just created the fields for. So there are always 2 steps in creating a table in Access. The first step we've already done, which is defining the fields, or what's also called creating the table structure. And then the second step, which is what we're about to do, is called entering the records or adding the records to the table. Alright, and if you think about it, you would need to do the steps in that order because you would need to know what pieces of information you want to store for each record before you actually enter the records into the table. And so that's why we did the field names first. Alright, so on page 17, what we want to do is we want to right click on the Account Manager table on the navigation pane. It'll open up a shortcut menu. We then want to click on Open on the shortcut menu, and it will open up the Account Manager table. And then you're going to click the Shutter Bar Open Close button so that it hides the navigation pane so you have more room to enter your records. And on page 17, in figure 1-20, it shows us the first two records that we need to type in into the Account Manager table. So I'm just going to basically use that figure 1-20, and I'm going to enter the records one field at a time. So I'm going to start with Account Manager number. And so if you'll notice there in figure 1-20 on page 17, the first record is Account Manager 42. So I'm going to type in 42 as the Account Manager number. Then I'm going to press Tab. You can press Tab to move from one column to the next in your data sheet. Alright. And then the next thing I need to enter is the last name. So I'm going to type in the last name that I see there on page 17, figure 1-20. Alright, then I'm going to press Tab and type in Peter as the first name, and then street. If you'll notice there is 5624 Murray Avenue. Okay, and then the city is Davidson. And then the state is Indiana, abbreviated, IN. Make sure that you type this information exactly the way it's shown in figure 1-20 on page 17. Because we're going to query the database later on, and if you haven't spelled things correctly, then some of your queries will not work correctly. Alright, so just make sure that you're careful and that you're typing it correctly. Alright, we're going to press Tab to move to the postal code field. We're going to type in the postal code for this record, which is 46007. And then we're going to press Tab to move to the start date. We're going to type in the start date. Again, type it exactly the way it's shown. Alright, then we're going to press Tab and type in the salary. When you type in a dollar amount, don't type in the $ or the commas. Just type in the digits of the number. Any decimal places that you have. Okay, so in this case we're just going to type in 36,750. 36,750. Alright, then we're going to press Tab to go to the bonus rate field. We're going to type in 0.09 as the bonus rate, and then we're going to press Tab. When you press Tab at the end of one row in your table, it saves that record that we just entered, and then it moves your insertion point down to the next row or record. Alright, so now we're ready to enter our second record in our Account Manager table, which you again also can see there in figure 1-20 on page 17. So we're going to type in 31 as the Account Manager number for the second record, and then Rivera, and then press Tab and type in the first name, press Tab, 325 Twitty Street as the street, and then city is Avondale, and then Illinois, abbreviated. Again, make sure you're typing this information correctly. And remember, I'm just using the Tab key to move from one column to the next. Alright, then I'm going to press Tab to move to the salary. Again, don't type any of the $signs. Just type in the digits of the number. So 48,750. Alright, 48,750. Alright, and then you're going to press tab, and once you press tab after you've typed in a number, just make sure that it formats it in the currency data type. Alright, with the $sign and with the commas. That should automatically be added once you move to the next column in your data sheet. Okay, so just make sure those are correct, and then the bonus rate for this field is 0.15. Alright, then we're going to press tab to move down to the next row or record in the table. Now in your book, it's going to tell you to close out of this table and close out of Access, and then reopen Access, reopen the table. To save some time, since I'm just kind of showing you the steps on how to create this table, I'm going to skip over that, and next thing I'm going to do is on page 21, it shows us the last two records that we need to enter for this table on figure 1-28 on page 21. Alright, so we're going to enter these exactly the same way that we did for the first two records. So the first one is 58. We're going to press tab to move to the next column, and then we're going to type in Morosky as the last name, and then the first name is Karen. And again, I'm using the tab key to move from one column to the next. 168 Truesdale Drive, and then press tab, and then the city is Carlton, and then press tab, and the state abbreviation is IL for Illinois, and then the postal code is 60313, and then tab, and type in the start date, which is 11/9/2016. Again, make sure you type it exactly the way it's shown. And then the salary for this employee or this account manager is $24,000. Again, just type in the digits of the number, and since we applied the currency data type to that field, it will automatically change it to the currency data type once you move to the next column. And then the bonus rate for this particular record is 0.08. So we type that in and then press tab. And again, once you press tab, the end of a particular row, it saves that record as part of that table that we've already saved, and moves you down to the next row where you can enter the next record. And this is going to be our last record. So again, on figure 1-28 on page 21, we're going to type in what's shown there for that last record. So 35 for the account manager number. Last name is Simpson. And then Mark is the first name. The street is 1467 Hartwell Street. Again, make sure you're spelling these things correctly. Make sure you take your time and that you're typing it correctly. 46004 is the postal code, and then the start date is 5/19/2014, and then the salary is $40,500, and then the bonus rate is 0.12. Alright, then you're going to press tab. Alright, and even though we're done entering the records for this table, we still wanted to press tab. We need to still press tab at the end of that last record there so that it saves that last record. Okay? Alright, so we've got that done. So we've got our table pretty much done, except we need to, at this point, go to page 23. We need to first click the Save button to save the changes that we've made, because we added those last two records since the last time we saved. So I just clicked on the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar to quickly save the changes to the table. And then on page 23, you'll notice that some of the fields display information that is too wide to fully display in the field. For example, the street field is especially an issue as far as not showing all of the information that goes in that particular field. So to fix that, we're going to set all of the field widths or the column sizes to best fit. So we do this basically in Access the same way that we learned how to do it in Excel. We're just going to basically point to the right boundary of each one of the column headings one by one, and we're going to double click. Alright, so first one is we're going to point to the right boundary of the Account Manager number heading, where the mouse pointer changes to a split double arrow, and then I'm just going to double click, and then I'm going to do that same method for the remaining fields. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on the right boundary of each one of the column headings. You'll notice it changes that street field quite a bit because it needed to be expanded so that we could see all the information in that field. Some of the fields it's going to actually make smaller, and some it will actually make a little bit wider depending on what information is included in that particular field. Okay, now what we just did as far as changing the field sizes, or the not field sizes, the column sizes in the table, that changes the structure of the table. So we need to click the Save button again to save all the changes that we've made to that table. Alright, and then the next few pages, you'll notice on the bottom of page 24 in figure 1-36, it shows us all the records for the table that we just entered. Now they may be in a different order than what we entered them. That's fine, but just kind of if you want to, just kind of check your work and make sure that you've entered all the information correctly. Alright, this would be a good place to kind of stop and make sure that you've got everything entered correctly, because again, we're going to be using this information later on, and so it needs to be correct. Alright, then page 25 and 26, it talks about how to preview and print the contents of the table. Since we're not going to be doing that, we're just going to be sending it electronically to Miles Arca. We don't really need to do that, so I'm going to skip over that. And so that completes this video. We've created the PrattLast Associates database. We created the first table in the database, which was the Account Manager table. In the next video, I will show you how to create the second table in this database, which is going to be the account table. And we're going to actually use the import feature in Access to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop for right now, and I will continue with the next video.